video, I will be discussing one method of finding patterns in the data, although I'll give you an overview of all of the different methods that we could use found in Chapter 2 of your textbook. So the first step of dealing with data is to organize our data in some way. Now, if I handed you a bunch of numbers, it would be really difficult to kind of figure out what that all means. So the first step is to really figure out what your distribution of scores are. And there's 4 different ways to visually describe a single variable. The first is the frequency table. The second is a grouped frequency table. The third is a frequency histogram. And the fourth is a frequency polygon. Now these are all related in some way. They're all different ways that we can identify patterns in our data, that we can see how our scores are distributed, and it helps us figure out what's going on with them. So I'm going to start here with the frequency table. And to get started, let's talk a little bit about terminology. The frequency of a particular value is the number of cases it contains. So here I have some raw data. And so this is, and I've actually conveniently put it down in descending order. So I've arranged it from highest to lowest. And what I've got is the number of nights that a student goes out per week. So for each of these different variables, you'll see the frequency of people saying they go out every night. It's one person in my sample of 20 students. The pattern of frequencies for a set of values is the frequency distribution. So it looks at this pattern right here to see what it looks like. Oh, it's kind of low here, gets a little bigger, it's pretty big here, gets a little smaller, big again, and then it kind of tapers off again. Okay, so that's your frequency distribution. So in order to get that frequency table that I had, the first thing I'm going to do is determine my highest and my lowest score. And you'll see that 7 is my highest score and 0 is my lowest score. So I'm going to go from the highest to the lowest in my columns here. I've labeled this nights because it is the number of nights that people go out. So this is all of the categories of outcomes that they could possibly have. So I've put down 7 because we go from the highest value and then down the table to the lowest value. So here we've got highest value to lowest value. So next, we're going to include all values even if the frequency is 0. Now you'll notice if you look at our raw scores that for 7 we have 1 observation, so 1 case. For 6 we have 2 observations, 2 cases. But when we get down to 1, you notice that there is no 1 in our raw scores. There's nobody who went out 1 night per week. And so in that case, we still list that possible observation and put in a frequency of 0. Now, if we didn't have anybody who reported 0 nights per week, like never going out, then we could actually end our table at 2 as being the minimum number. Next, you label your columns. Here I have the number of nights. I have the frequency. You can write out the word frequency or you can use an italicized F. And here this means cumulative frequency. And I'll show you what that means in just a minute. Make sure you include all of the cases. In this case, if you notice here, we have 20 observations, so you should have 20 values in your frequency column. Don't skip any. All of your cases should be included in order to see whether or not this is accurate. I'm going to shift this down just a minute. What you see is we have 20 students, so the sum of all of these frequencies, actually that should say sum of frequency, equals 20, right? 1 and 2 and 2 is 5 and 10 and 13 and 18 and 20. Okay. And the last thing that you need to know in constructing a frequency table is that you may also include your cumulative frequency. So you start at the bottom of the table, and you see for 0 people we have for 0 nights per week we have 2 observations, and then 0 and 1 observation, still 2 observations. For 0, 1, and 2 nights per week, we take this value that's listed in the cumulative frequency table and add 5, and we get 7. So people who've gone out 0, 1, or 2 nights per week total 7, and so forth. And you add them all together, and the top of the column should equal the number of observations, which is 20. In the next video, I will be addressing the grouped frequency table, and we'll talk about how it's the same and how it's different from a regular frequency table.